How's it going, you two? I don't think I can hear you. All right. All right. Did you get your sound working, Jim and Chris? Yeah, I don't know. Can't hear you guys. That's okay. The important thing tonight is that you guys can communicate with each other. So that's the most important thing. Try something here. Unplug this to see if that works. Great. Mystery. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started here in just a minute. Tess and Ryan, I think you guys are there. Hi, guys. Hey. So tonight we're going to be talking about our rallying cry. And just as a reminder, we're recording this meeting so that we can kind of repurpose it and have other families that maybe can't make this time, that this can be kind of an evergreen resource that people can be using throughout time. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm really curious. I think the first thing I want to talk about is, I know Jim and Chris, you guys weren't here the last week, unless this is something maybe you've talked about already, but Posh family, what'd you come up with last week? I'm so curious.
Okay, so we ended up with, ready?
Yeah.
Together, we unconditionally and sacrificially love God, family, others, and ourselves through humility, honesty, and forgiveness. Surrendering to the will of God, we strive to live an authentic life full of passion, curiosity, and growth, thanking Him in advance for His goodness.
Amen. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
How long do you think it took you to finalize it?
I think once we had our core values written down and in a list that we could kind of pick from, maybe an hour.
Yeah, we both came up with like our own versions on our own time, and then we sat down and talked about it, and then tried to combine different sentences and what we liked about each other. So
yeah, so probably about an hour total, I would say.
Nice. That's awesome. Beautiful. I love it.
thank you.
Jim and Chris, have you guys, maybe thumbs up or thumbs down, have you gone through the first session yet, or have you come up with like a family mission statement or motto? Okay. I still don't know why we can't hear you guys, but I got a head shake from Jim, so. Oops. Well, we'll try to work on the tech in our, maybe one of our discussion periods, and see if we can hear from you guys. That would be awesome. So the next thing that we're just, again, overview of just the 3 weeks. Last week, we talked about what makes our family unique. That's the first big question. The second big question is, what is our rallying cry, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight. And then the third week is, how do we put these into practice? I believe I have a copy of our, oh no, where is it? I'll get to, we have a scorecard that I will send out to each of you guys so that we can take each of these questions and fill them out. And again, a lot of people take their scorecard and they redesign it, they make it pretty, or they make it fit their family, or some people just are like, yeah, just give me the straight basic version. That works too. So tonight we're going to be talking about our rallying cry, and this is a really old video, but I think it's hilarious, and I think it's a really good example of a rallying cry, and just good energy. So here we go. I hope you guys like it, because I think it's absolutely hilarious and super cute. All right, I'm gonna hope that my sound works okay for this.
Look, I can be a shark. Now my whole house is great. I can do anything good. I like my school. I like anything. I like my dad. I like my cousins. I like my aunts. I like my Allisons. I like my mom. I like my sisters. I like my dad. I like my hair. I like my haircuts. I like my pajamas. I like my stuff. I like my rooms. I like my whole house. My whole house is great. I can do anything good. Yeah. I can do anything good. Better than anyone. Better than anyone.
I just love that video, and I think as we keep talking about the rallying cry, we may see a little bit more about how like good energy and good focus is really, really important for making this work well. All right, so again, rallying cry is what we're talking about tonight, and we're going to get into a little bit more detail about what exactly a rallying cry means. Because it's not just like a William Wallace kind of situation. There's a little bit more that goes into it, although it is kind of like a battle plan, having a rallying cry for your family. So again, here is the scorecard or scoreboard. By the end of the 3 weeks, we will have these all filled out and ready to go, and we will be totally equipped to use this on a weekly basis to move our families from being frantic and chaotic and all over the place to hopefully having some more purpose, some more direction, and a better mission in mind. So this is week 2. We are talking about what is our top priority right now. Another way of saying what is our rallying cry? What are our defining objectives? So what are the things that we need to do in order to accomplish what our rallying cry is right now? And then what are our standard operating objectives? What are things that we need to be focusing on all the time? And through each stage of tonight, which probably will be a little shorter than last week, we'll be able to figure out what do these mean and how do we set them up in order to be everything that we need them to be. And again, just Jim and Chris, if at any point, if we can't get audio to work, if you guys have questions, feel free to like type them in the chat. That would work great for us.
For else, the second.
Oh, I don't know how to get these videos to not autoplay. So this next slide is, again, the founder and the guy who came up with this book, The 3 Big Questions for a Frantic Family. Again, his name's Pat Lencioni. He is, Forbes called him one of the top 5 business speakers in the world. Very sought after. He kind of wrote the book on organizational health. We use him. He's a devout Catholic, had a huge conversion after a great amounts of worldly success. Just recognized that Jesus was what he needed, that no amount of worldly success was going to bring him the happiness that he desired. And so he decided to take all of this amazing stuff that he'd come up with for the business world and apply it to family life. And then later he moved into applying it to parish life and founded the Amazing Parish. Now he has a podcast, and we're going to listen to just like a 7-minute clip. I could explain it, but he's going to do it a whole lot better. And we're going to hear from some people on his team about examples of a rallying cry and just giving a little bit more definition to that. So I wish this was a video. It's just audio, but I definitely think it's worth the listen. So feel free to just take it in, and we will check back on the other side of this in about 7 minutes.
Second question is really important, and that's what's the most important priority for our family right now? Mm-hmm. What's the one big thing that we're going to rally around probably for the next 3 to 6 months? It might even be 2 or 3, shorter than a company usually. But what's going on in your family right now that everybody in the family needs to say, that's number one? Mm-hmm. And the story I like to tell is the first time I did this with my wife, we had 3 kids and 3 boys, and we found out we were pregnant with our 4th, and we were delighted. Thank you, God. But we were also overwhelmed. We were like, Laura and I are not very organized. That wasn't one of our values, Jeff.
We weren't available at the time.
That's true. Yeah, we'd move into a house together and do that in the future. But so we said, what are we going to do to get ready for baby number 4? And we said, that's our strategic focus. That's our rallying cry. For the next 4 months or 5 months we had until our baby was born, prepare the family for baby number 4. Now, instead of putting posters in the bathroom and t-shirts that said, prepare for baby number 4, we actually had to define what that meant. So you just can't have a rally and cry and say, prepare for baby number 4. And you go, what does that mean? I don't know. So we said, well, what would we have to do if we were going to say we were prepared for baby number 4? And we said, well, first, we have these 7-year-old twins, and they're not self-sufficient enough. We have to like goad them into the shower and make their lunch and get them to do their homework. And if they can't do all that on their own, we're in big trouble when the 4th baby comes. So we said the self-sufficiency of our twins, that was one. Then the next one was we had a 3-year-old who was a little behind in the discipline department because we thought he was our youngest, so we were spoiling him. And that's poor Casey, who's now 17. And we said, Casey, your life is over as you know it. Get out of our bed, get out of those diapers, because your brother's coming and your life is changing. So, and then we also had to outsource some things, and we had to finish our kitchen remodel because it was lagging way behind. And we had to clean out the garage again because we had a bunch of stuff come in we thought we didn't need. So we just had those 5 things on a list, and we were like, oh, wow. If we could focus on those 5 things, we can ignore other things. I mean, I remember thinking I should probably start going to Pilates because I can't touch my toes. And I was like, that doesn't matter.
It's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. I said, good. I was going to redesign our backyard. And we were like, that's not going to help me get ready for baby number 4. I could gladly say, we're going to put that off. See, that's what having a priority is. It allows you to say no to some things and yes to others based on what's most important.
The guilt that it alleviates.
Oh my gosh.
This isn't the season that we're going to do flag football because this other thing is going on.
Right.
Or whatever it might be. You know, there's so many priorities, and it's easy just to have a list of things and just to go through life, but doing it intentional. And you're going to do another one. Like you said, it's 2 to 3 to 4 months, and there's going to be something else.
Well, you know what ours is right now? So
Tell us.
My youngest son is 13. Michael, that baby was born. So that was 13 and a half years ago. He's now going into high school next year. That means, and his older brother is a senior, and he's going to be driving him. We're far less involved in their day-to-day lives when they're in high school. Laura wants to start working again. Because remember our strategy about being maximally involved in our kids' life? We can't do that the same way. So right now, our thematic goal is preparing Laura for her re-entry into the workplace. And so our 4 things are help her rediscover her passions, where that should be, help her figure out what opportunities are out there, help the boys and the family pick up the slack on some of those things, and then begin the process of me adjusting some of my expectations as well. So that's what our current one is.
And then you look at that and you're like, that's totally doable.
Exactly.
Feels less overwhelming.
And Laura might say, well, why are you focused on me? Because you're the focus right now. And there's going to be another time when one of your kids is going to be the focus. You're going to feel guilty and you're going to go to the other kids. No, she deserves that because she's getting ready to go to college, or she has a special need right now, or, you know, or dad just lost his job. Let's rally around our family while dad's looking for his new job.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, we have a similar one. So ours is prepare for big transitions. We had a daughter entering high school. We have a son that's a senior and will go off to college. And my husband just retired from his first career and is looking for his second career, his second half of life career.
You're a family in transition.
Exactly. So we have our defining objectives, which was save some money, explore opportunities outside of what we've been doing the last 17 years. We wanted to stabilize the projects around the house so that Rich wasn't working all the time on the house stuff.
That's great.
And we needed to develop a new routine with him being home more.
Darn. Okay. I think we'll pause it there. You kind of get the gist. That your rallying cry is what's most important right now. And then just setting aside like 5, 6 objectives for getting where you need to go. It sounds really simple, but it seems a lot of times, one thing we say a lot as a parish is people need to be reminded more than they need to be instructed. So a lot of times, like, this probably isn't new information for any of us, but we know that it just takes sometimes just someone to pause, to reflect and say, hey, yeah, setting five really realistic steps, that's going to make this next thing easier. So this is the question. We're kind of going to go step by step and start reflecting on these things. What is most important for our family right now? And thinking about what's important and what's urgent. Because if something's important, but it's not urgent, then maybe there's something we need to put ahead of it. If something's urgent, but it's not important, then we need to put what's important in front. And if it's not important and it's not urgent, then it's not a rallying cry. But one other thing that's really, really important is like your mission statement, thinking about your mission statement and thinking about your rallying cry, like what's getting you out of bed in the morning. So we want to hope that like this is going to animate and bring life to your family. So as we get closer to looking at some of the objectives, just keep in mind that this isn't supposed to be a totally burdensome process. Of course, there are some things that are just not going to be fun. But we want to make sure that this is animating our families, not draining our families. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take, I think this is just 5 minutes. 5 minutes for us to pause. Feel free to turn off your videos so you don't feel like everyone else is watching you have this discussion. Talk with your family for 5 minutes and say, okay, what is most important and urgent right now? What should our rallying cry be? So we'll pause for 5 minutes and we'll come back. All right. So I won't have us share our rallying cries now because sometimes as we kind of progress through the rest of the stages, this might get tweaked a little bit. So if you feel like, okay, we might need to change what we're going to do, change our rallying cry, that's okay, because this might help bring some clarity as we move forward. So the next thing, as we have our rallying cry in our vision, the next thing we're going to be looking at is our defining objectives. So this is an example from the little podcast excerpt that we listened to. The example of their rallying cry was they are getting ready for baby number 4. And so these were the 5 objectives that they said, okay, if we get these 5 things accomplished, we can say that we accomplished our goal. So getting their twins self-sufficient, potty training and, working with their 3-year-old, cleaning the garage, sorting through baby clothes, sorting through all their baby supplies, outsourcing services like having someone else mow the lawn, having someone else shovel the snow, things like that. And then preparing the baby's room. These were the objectives that they had laid out. And you could say, okay, if I could imagine preparing for baby number 4, that these things would help me feel like, okay, we are ready. We're ready for this baby. Just a few other examples, because anyone who's watching this, we might be coming from various different states of life. So this could be our rallying cry is preparing for retirement. So if you have investment properties or you have other investments, and like selling it, time to sell those or invest differently, making a new budget because income is going to be different at this point. Having some sort of an exit strategy for work. How is that process going to go of moving away from this job? Having some sort of schedule, and which will be different than a schedule that we had previously when we were working. And then just having a priority of like, okay, how are we going to deal with the emotional aspect of retirement? And you could say, okay, if we get these things done, then we feel like we have accomplished this rallying cry. We've accomplished this goal. Another one, super relevant to me in my life because I work for a nonprofit and I went to a private Catholic school, is paying off debt. So things like boosting our emergency fund, like really investing in putting emergency fund money back every month, cutting our spending, investing in a high yield savings account, making a transition to date nights that are free. So we're not spending, $40 on dinner every other week or whatever. And then purging belongings and selling excess. These are all kind of manageable ways we could say, okay, we're not going to maybe pay off all of our debt in one fell swoop, but this is going to help us reach our goal. Just one relevant example, this was our family's rallying cry. We're actually kind of just in the stage where we're like, okay, we feel like the time for this rallying cry is kind of over and we need to find something else. But the Kyle family, as they said in the podcast, there are going to be times when your rallying cry is going to be focusing on one particular member of our family. And this was what was I had knee surgery. I couldn't drive. And we were going through a lot of changes. And so we had these 6 goals of, I really wanted to use my time that I was at home and not being able to drive wisely. So I wanted to do some sort of a retreat. Trying to find someone to care for our dog, because when I was home by myself, I couldn't care for the dog by myself for several weeks. Making plans for me being home alone, who's going to supervise me for certain activities. And my husband, Zach, like making sure he had a priority of like, okay, he's being the caregiver for me. He's taking on a lot of things that he hadn't been taking on previously. So just checking in, like, how is he handling those things? The ongoing Rubik's Cube of figuring out who was driving me to and from all of my doctors and physical therapy appointments. And then just making sure we were prioritizing having quality time as a couple. So this was our rallying cry, and these were our defining objectives. And we said, okay, we look at these things and we didn't do them perfectly by any means. And usually it was the easier stuff to let go that got dropped first. So, if we were panicking about something, usually it was the intentional time as a couple that got dropped, which is not ideal. But that's how it goes. We're not expecting you to be perfect in executing your rallying cry. But again, it gives us direction. So for example, my husband, he always is pursuing some sort of kind of certification because he loves to learn and he wants to be excellent in his career. But now was not the right time to be, pursuing another certification. This was just his attention needed to be focused on me. And because this was the rallying cry we discerned, I didn't have to feel guilty for being the center of attention for a little while, knowing that there might be another time when the focus needs to be on him. And so there's just great freedom in that. What we're going to talk about next, I'm going to see if I can mute this. We are going to be going through what are your defining objectives. So that's looking at, okay, what are the 4, 5, 6 things, looking at our rallying cry that we can accomplish that are going to say, okay, if we do these 5 things in the next 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, we can say, okay, we've accomplished those. So again, we're going to take just a little bit more time, 10 minutes to process this. Coming at 4, 5, 6, not more than 6, because then it starts to get a little bit too much. 6 objectives, 4, 5 in the next 10 minutes for our defining objectives. So we'll check in about 9 minutes and 17 seconds. All right, just take the next couple seconds to wrap up. And again, you have plenty of time to finish these discussions as for the next week too. All right. So the final thing we'll be talking about tonight are what are the standard things that are always important to us. We've got a rallying cry, which is, going to change every few months, maybe. And our defining objectives underneath that, those are also going to change as our rallying cry changes. And sometimes even we do the same model as a parish leadership team. We have our scorecard that we go through every week. And our we're rating things and going through and saying, okay, what's the status of this? And we'll talk more about how to actually practically use the scorecard next week. But sometimes even our defining objectives change as we're going through, and we think, okay, this particular thing, like we thought this was going to be a bigger deal, or we thought this was going to take more time, and it actually didn't end up doing so. And so we're going to move this off our scorecard and maybe add something else on. But there are going to be things that are always going to be important to us, things that we need to be constantly evaluating as a family. So here are just a few examples of what that might look like. Here's some pretty basic. There's no one size fits all. You guys completely have the freedom to choose what objectives you like. But these are pretty darn basic standard operating objectives for a family. Okay, like our marriage health. How do we feel like our relationship is going? Children, like just what's the status of our kids? How are they doing? And maybe at some point we change that to grandkids, or we say, okay, we don't feel like we need to check in about this all the time, and we replace it with something else. Finances, always good to have an opportunity to check in about how finances are going as a couple, especially for those of you. I've noticed a lot of times, I think someone wrote a book about this, but how you're either a saver or a spender, and very often you marry each other. And so it's just a good chance to check in about, okay, what our expenses looking like, what's our debt situation look like, what's our retirement situation look like, things like that. Family prayer life, how's our family spirituality? Health and fitness is another option. How do we feel like our eating is going? Are we eating the way that we want to? Are we exercising the way that we want to? How is like doctor's appointments and other things like that? And then home maintenance would be another option. Just checking in about various projects. Another, if you like alliteration, this has been our family's way of modeling for a really long time. The 5 P's of prayer, person, partner, parent, and provider. And they're intentionally in this order. Like this is the order in order of importance. So we go usually kind of back and forth. We say, how's prayer? How's prayer going for you this week? Sharing about that. Like, did we pray? What has Jesus been saying to me lately? How is especially right now, like, how is my Lenten practice going? Whatever my commitment was for Lent, how is that going between us? Person. So this is looking at actually I should give a shout out to a friend of mine named Colleen, who shared this particular viewpoint with me, these 5 P's. And she said that really when you're talking about person, you're looking at how are you doing physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. Now this is another P. If this, I don't know, what's your whistle? I don't really know, but she calls it pies. Yeah, so pies, how are you physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually? Checking in, getting all that together. And then partner. So that's like our relationship. How are we doing as a couple? How do we feel like our relationship is going? How's our sex life? That's very important to have conversations about. And that can be really scary to talk about. But again, especially I'd say our sex life and finances are important things to talk about that can be really scary to talk about. But if they're built into our standard operating objectives, we might just start getting used to having those conversations, which is really awesome. Then parent. So that's looking at how are we parenting our children. This is also a great opportunity to talk about our fertility, how NFP is going, how, checking in every week about how do we feel like we're ready for another baby? Those are really important questions. And then checking in about individual children also fits in perfectly with this. And then provider, which is mostly covering finances and home care and things like that. How are we doing with that sphere? And if you check in with all 5 of those, you'll be doing a pretty good job of covering all of your bases of what our standard operating objectives are. So now we've got some time to go through what are our standard operating objectives for us as a couple. Whatever you think, what are kind of 4, 5, 6 of important things that we should just be regularly checking in about. And again, as I said at the beginning, next week will be when we start to talk about how do we build a system in some way to take what we've built and apply it to our day-to-day life. And we'll talk more about that. So for now, yeah, just think about 10-ish minutes. If you feel like, okay, we got this done ahead of time, either unmute yourself and let me know, or send it in the chat box and say, okay, we got this done early. It might not quite take 10 minutes to come up with these. So we'll see you again in 5 or 10 minutes. All right. We'll come back here in just a few seconds. Okay, so as we wrap up, yeah, about 20 minutes early, which is excellent. Here are just some reflection questions that we can go through as we are kind of taking the next week to just smooth out the wrinkles, figure out exactly what we want to do. Highly encourage you, if you have an opportunity in the next week, go out to dinner. And I don't know if there's any place like this, but we've gone to a place, there's a restaurant called Macaroni Grill, which has really excellent food and also has tablecloths that you can write on, and they give you crayons for the adults. And it's always a great place to brainstorm and say, and to kind of like work through these questions together. I don't know if there's a restaurant like that around here, but I guess you could go to like IHOP and get one of the kids coloring menus or something like that. So looking at, okay, what is most urgent and what's most important for us right now? That's looking at your rallying cry. What do we need to say no to? Again, a very important question. How will we keep Jesus in this process? How are we gonna make sure that kind of we have a pulse on what God wants our family to be about? Sometimes it's really clear, and sometimes there's like 5 different options, and we just say, okay, Lord, like help us figure out what exactly you want our family to be about. And then figuring out, this doesn't have to be hard and fast, but figure out how much time do we think we need to accomplish this rallying cry. Just to give yourself, it helps to have some sort of timeline. Like again, if you're preparing for baby number 4, then like the due date is your timeline. So that's it. That's all you get. But other things like if remodeling the house, there might not be as fixed of an end time. So just setting up, okay, what's our end goal for this? So here's some reflection questions, and then this is our homework for the next week. Go out to dinner, go get breakfast, go get coffee, do something fun, and just kind of put your finishing touches on your rallying cry, your defining objectives, and your standard operating objectives. And then as it applies, communicate it to your children and your family so that they know what's going on too. And that's it. So we got out of here like 20 minutes early. That's amazing. Does anyone have questions or comments or want to share what they're working on? Anything like that? Good. Okay. Sweet. Well, you guys are the best. I love both of your families so much. And we should all go out for a beer sometime. The 6 of us. Yes. Jim's like, okay, we'll get ready to go to Fiddler's Hearth like tomorrow. All right. So I will hope to see you guys next Monday or earlier than that. And if at any point you need to review, I will be uploading this to our YouTube page here in the next few hours. So, all right. I'll
Thanks,
see you.
Abby.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You guys are the best.
Take care.
All right. Bye.